Washington Examiner investigative reporter Sarah Westwood and host of the Richard Fowler Show and Fox News contributor Richard Fowler. Thanks both for joining me.
Good to be here.
So, Sarah, let me start with you. The Democrats have discovered that Joe Biden is too old for the job. What do you think?
Well, I think these sorts of things tend to be sort of self-fulfilling. Once they get going, you know, they tend to snowball. Once Democrats start abandoning President Biden, questioning openly his credibility and his competence to complete his term or to seek a second one, he's less effective on Capitol Hill. He's less effective in dealing with Democratic governors who may be, you know, positioning themselves publicly to run in 2024. And that just sort of feeds this whole perception that he is not the standard bearer that Democrats want. The bubble of competence, that perception that President Biden was especially competent, was sort of pierced back in the summer during the Afghanistan withdrawal, but it's only gotten worse from there.
Richard Fowler, there does seem to be serious talk here about Biden not running. We saw that poll that showed 2/3 of Democratic primary voters don't want him to run. Only 5% of young voters want Joe Biden to be president again. Do you think there's any prospect at all that he will run, or do you think that the game's up?
Listen, I think we're going to have to wait to see that. I think if you talk to most Democrats that I've talked to in my reporting have said this. They're very much more concerned about the midterm elections, which are just a couple weeks away, and making sure that they maintain their majorities in the House and the Senate. Now, where the Democratic Party has a problem, I think where they've always had a problem brewing, is how they talk to millennial and Gen Z voters, which has become a new part of their base. And this conversation around who's in control of the party and their youth has actually become a real critical part of this conversation. Now, what is working in Biden's favor is this: having some maturity on the world stage, being somebody who knows all the players, has led to NATO expansion, has led to the strongest NATO alliance that we've seen in decades, because he's somebody who knows the European allies very well. He's somebody who understands the art of diplomacy, and he's used it to his benefit in Europe at a time when Putin thought that he could outplay and outwit the current president of the United States, and he was outplayed and outwitted by Joe Biden.
Well, I would say, don't you think, just briefly on that, Richard, don't you think it's more Vladimir Putin who's brought NATO together than Joe Biden?
I think it's a little bit of both, because there would have been a world in which, if Biden wasn't in the lead, that, you know, NATO might have fractured. But what you actually see is NATO's expanded, and that's because Joe Biden's been at the front of that, has been driving that bus.